like Thompson's, was in the newly discovered Muggletonian archive, now in the British Library.
The Muggletonians have hitherto only surfaced as a kind of rather bizarre name, featuring just on the periphery of events. For the first time ever, we've got a continuous record of a small group, tiny in numbers, but we're seeing it from the inside, and I think in many ways it can help us to understand the 17th century better.
What was the maximum number of Muggletonians ever recorded at any one time?
Well, I think the nearest we can get to that is that we know that 248 Muggletonians attended the funeral of Lodowick, and that may well have been their peak. And from then on, it's downhill all the way. So I think it is important to realise that we're talking about a very small movement indeed. We must keep it in proportion. Muggletonianism was not the secret religion of Englishmen in the 17th and 18th century. It was a very, very small minority. The amazing thing about it is that it survived as long as it did because no effort was made to convert. This is very important. It was true of the first Muggletonian, it was true of the last.
By the 19th century, the dwindling band of Muggletonians had established a library in New Street, Bishopsgate, the site of Lodowick's birth. They devoted themselves to a gigantic publishing task, printing and reprinting all the divine works of the two great prophets.
Macaulay, you see, had Muggleton as a notorious tippler. Now, this is quite wrong, but it's based on the fact that the Muggletonians met in pubs. This was the place where they could be safe. They would hire a room, and there they would discuss together the teachings of the prophets, and particularly in the 18th century, the custom grew of what they called the divine songs. And they would have their rather bad doggerel hymning the praises of Muggleton and Reeve to the tune of the national anthem or well-known folk songs, so that as far as the pub was concerned, all they could hear were some patriotic Englishmen having a good night out. But in fact, they were paying their respects to the prophets of the 17th century, a rather touching sort of little vignette.
Some beliefs lingered. As late as the 19th century, one Muggletonian, Isaac Frost, was willing to risk ridicule from the scientific community by publishing his faith in the Muggletonian view of astronomy, their belief in a geocentric universe, the stars, the sun and the moon tiny, and floating only a few miles above the Earth's surface.
I think one of the great problems for the historian of 17th century England is, first of all, of assuming that they are very like the 19th century, the confusion, say, of Victorian nonconformity with Stuart Puritanism, which are very different sort of animals. But with the Muggletonians, there's no danger of us looking on them as just normal sort of beings. The danger's the other way. Now, this time, we're able to see it from the inside. We're able to see what 18th and 19th century followers made of the doctrine.
The story might have ended there, but for the fact that hundreds of bound Muggletonian textbooks have now found their way up to York, to an antiquarian dealer there who has taken charge of Philip Noakes's collection. These, then, are the remains of the curious and charming beliefs of John Reeve and Lodowick Muggleton. Just boxes and boxes of dusty old books, tomes, dissertations, breviaries, and hymnals. Far more, in fact, than there ever were Muggletonians who were likely to read them or sing from them. The printers must have been optimistic men, imagining a flourishing church bound for great things. But in fact, these boxes stand as testimony to the public failure of a very private belief. It might have remained wholly private and wholly forgotten, but for a series of lucky accidents. The article in the Times Literary Supplement, a chance conversation over cocktails, the foresight of the historian E.P. Thompson. Now it's very much public property. These books are going to scholars all over the world. A window's suddenly been opened on religious life in 17th century England. But one intriguing question remains. Was Philip Noakes of Mapfield really the last Muggletonian? Or are there others out there, perhaps, for whom these books are holy writ, and for whom Lodowick Muggleton was the last true prophet?